All right, let us consider some multiple choice questions from Module 1 of the Biology 101. The first question, the first set of questions are consists about 20 questions, and there are three sets here. Each set actually has 20 questions, so we're going to be seeing each of the three sets. The first question says, which of the following best defines biology? A says the study of chemical interactions in the environment. B says the science of viruses and pathogens. C says the systematic study of living organisms and life processes. D says the scientific study of matter and energy. Now, the biology, if you remember, recall, we said it is gotten from two Greek words, bios and logos. And we said bios means life. So the first thing to take note of is any of the definition here that contains the word life. Okay, so the study of living of chemical interactions, no. Study of viruses and pathogens, no. That limits it. The study of living organisms and their processes, so that would be the correct answer, option C, the systematic study of living things and life processes. The hierarchical organization of life begins at the atomic level. Which sequence correctly shows the hierarchy up to the biosphere? Which sequence? Now we have the molecules, organelles, no, atom, cell, C says atom, molecules, organelle, cell, tissue, organ system, organism, population, community. That's the answer again. Option C is the correct answer. We said atoms become molecules, molecules work together to form the organelles. First to form macromolecules, and macromolecules in their aggregates make up the organelles, and then organelles form cell, or a cell is composed of organelles. Then cells working together to perform the same function are said to be tissues, and the cell is the actual fundamentally the first level of organization of life or living. So tissues organize themselves to perform organize themselves, performing similar functions to form organs, and then organs form organ system, then organism, population, community, ecosystem, and biosphere. I've explained this a lot, so make sure you see the video. So the answer is C here. The next question says, which of the following properties, that's question 3, which of the following properties of life involves regulation of internal conditions? And involves regulation of internal conditions. We have growth. Growth, we said, is the permanent increase in size. Homeostasis is the regulation of fairly constant internal environment, and that will be the answer. So homeostasis, option B. That's the correct answer. Number 4 says, which characteristic which characteristic is common to all living things? We have the ability to photosynthesize, B, locomotion, C, maintenance of homeostasis, D, presence of nervous system. Now, if you look at the question very well, it says all living things, all living things. So if it's all living things, definitely not plants cannot move. When it comes to locomotion, poriferans don't move. They are sessile. Photosynthesis is restricted to plants, and the presence of nervous system is restricted to animals. So the answer is going to be maintenance of homeostasis. Maintenance of homeostasis. Plant cells use vacuoles to do this. Exactly. The idea that life arose spontaneously from non-living matter was strongly supported by who? So which of the scientists mentioned there is a major proponent of the fact that life arose from um, spontaneously from non-living matter? Now, The answer is Aristotle. If you have seen the summary video that I posted, I discussed this. Aristotle is the answer to that question. Which of the following theories is no longer considered scientifically valid in explaining the origin of life? Which one is considered to be no longer valid? We have A, cosmozoic theory. We have B, theory of chemical evolution. That is still very valid. Cosmozoic theory is also valid because it wasn't opposed by too many scientists. But the theory of spontaneous generation is the answer, which is considered no longer valid. It's considered no longer valid because of actually some scientists supported that proposition, such as Arrhenius and all of them. But because it has no substantial proof, no substantial evidence, then it was, abolished, or it was no longer valid. Who among the following proposed the chemical evolution theory? Now, who proposed the chemical evolution theory? We have Charles Darwin and Gregor Mendel. We have Richter and Arrhenius. We have, if you remember, I just mentioned that Arrhenius and Richter were the one who proposed spontaneous generation. Okay, Aristotle and Socrates, AI Oparin and JBS Haldane. Now, the fact that chemical evolution is Charles Darwin and Gregor Mendel made notable contributions, at least Charles Darwin um, for major context, where we have the Darwinism theory and all of that. It shouldn't confuse you. The actual people that proposed the chemical evolution theory are AI Oparin and JBS Haldane. I've mentioned this. RA and AI Oparin and JBS Haldane. Then the adaptation of organisms to the environment over time is primarily driven by, now what drives the adaptation of living organisms to the environment? A says mutation and natural selection, and that's just the answer. This mutation, that is changes that occur in their genes or in their genome, and natural selection, which is the survival of the fittest. Okay, so their environments, they continue to adapt and adapt to the environment, and over time they evolve. Which of the following is not a characteristic of living organism? Ability to reproduce, growth and development, sensitivity to light only. That is C. Sensitivity to light only. That's the answer. We are not. That is not a characteristic of living organisms. Sensitivity to light only. Of course, we are sensitive to light, but not only light. The ability of bacteria to move towards or away from chemical stimulus. That will be chemotaxis. Of course, the word chemo already tells you that it's going to be related with chemical, right? Chemotaxis. Then, according to the model, that's model one, the earliest life forms to appear on Earth were we have fungi, mammals, microorganisms. Of course, microorganisms. They were the earliest organisms to dominate the earth, to colonize the earth. We have virology challenges the definition of life because viruses are photosynthetic. No, they are not. Viruses possess all eight properties of life. No, they don't. They can reproduce but lack cellular structure. They are multicellular. No. So the answer is C. That's the best bet there. They can reproduce, yes, and that's the only fundamental living function they can perform, function of reproduction. But they lack cellular structure. So that's the answer there. That's why they are considered as intermediary between the living, they stand in between the living and non-living world. They bridge the gap between them. They are only living in non-living in living cells and are non-living or crystal in non-living cells. The study of the physical traits and behaviors of extinct species fall falls under which branch of biology? So basically, it's talking about the study of the behaviors of organisms that have existed before now. So once you know that, once you hear that, then you already know it's paleontology. Paleontology. That is option C. Okay. I mean, in multicellular organisms, specialized cells carry out specific functions. This is known as differentiation. That's the answer. Differentiation. That is, cell differentiation is just a cell becoming specialized in performing a particular function. And that is what differentiates multicellular organisms from unicellular organisms. You know, they are colonial organisms, organisms that are colonial in nature. They consist of aggregates, don't confuse it with multicellular, aggregates of single cells, aggregate of single cells. But multicellular organisms, there are many cells, and they are out of the many cells, different units are classified, they are specialized for a particular function. So that's why we are advanced beyond the, the cellular stage. That's why organisms like Spongilla, in the Porifera family, is still under the cell stage because they exist in colony, but they never really get the cells never get differentiated. So because of that, they they are not multicellular, but in fact colonial. Okay, so um, while advanced organisms like humans have differentiated cells that perform different functions. Okay, um, differentiated group of cells. Thank you. Now, 15. A good example of thermoregulation is a plant bending thermoregulation. Thermo, when you hear the word thermo, you remember we said it's heat. Thermoregulation. Is it a plant bending toward light, or a bacteria dividing by binary fission, or a human sweating during exercise? Of course, that would be C, a human sweating during exercise. That's the only thing that has to do with heat there. Which of the following theories suggests that life originated from spores in meteorites? Which of these suggests that life originated from spores? Now, option A says spontaneous generation, and B says cosmozoic theory. And that will be the answer, yes, cosmozoic theory. That some spores fell from, the meteors into the earth and that. So that's that, cosmozoic theory. Yes. Then let's go to number 17. It says, which scientist was not was not associated with the origin of life theories mentioned in the model? Which of these scientists is not associated with origin of life theories mentioned in the model? We have A.I. Oparin, B. Aristotle, C. Louis Pasteur. The answer is Aristotle. Aristotle was not mentioned, wasn't associated with, no. Louis Pasteur, sorry. Aristotle was associated with the first one. The answer is Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur. It wasn't mentioned in the passage. Louis Pasteur. Now we have, in biological context, energy processing refers to, what is energy processing in in the context of biology? A. Storing energy in chlorophyll. No. Metabolic process utilizing energy source. Yes, that will be the answer. Energy processing. C says heat regulation through 4. No. Neural transmission of, no. The answer is B. Metabolic processes utilizing energy sources. Which of the following best example is exercise, right? Now, number 19, which of the following best describes the purpose of scientific inquiry in biology? Which of the following best describes the purpose of scientific inquiry in biology? A. To support religious beliefs. No, of course. To find natural explanation for biological phenomena. I think that is a nice one. Let's see the next one. To create life from non-no, to eliminate supernatural. Answer is B. To find natural explanation for biological phenomena. Which of the following is considered an internal regulatory mechanism to maintain balance? Which of the following is considered an internal regulatory mechanism that maintains balance? A, we have A, adaptation, B, thermoregulation, adaptation, no, to maintain balance. Thermoregulation, evolution, no. The answer is thermoregulation then. That's the best answer there. That contain an internal regulatory mechanism. That's so here in this place is regulating heat, isn't it? Oh, okay, yes. Since you see regulatory, yes, so regulation too. Okay, so that validates our answer. Let's go to set two of the um, questions. This one talks about organisms, cell, and all of those things. Of course, it also, these are just the possible questions you are likely to see in that module. Okay. Now, the first one says the study of viruses in biology is you. The study of viruses in biology is unique because one or A, viruses are always multicellular. No, viruses reproduce without a host. That's true. But is that why they're unique? Viruses show some but not all properties of life. Yes, that's why it's unique. Of course, viruses reproduce without a host. They don't even reproduce without a host. No, viruses don't reproduce without a host. I mean, they actually reproduce only when there is a host. Exactly. So viruses show some but not all properties of life. Viruses show some but not all properties of life. So that's why they are unique. Virology is unique. Which of the following best describes the role of DNA in replication? What is the major role, or which um, sentence here or phrase here? That will not be phrase. Which of these options describe the major role, the role of DNA in production? We have to transport nutrients, no. Maintain homeostasis, in no. Store genetic instruction, of course. Genetic instruction, that's DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. In multicellular organisms, cells may sacrifice themselves for the organism's benefit. This is possible because multicellular organisms, cells may sacrifice themselves for the organism because for the organism's benefit, and it is possible because A, cell mutation, B, cellular specialization, cellular specialization, spontaneous generation. Now let us try to understand the question. If a cell sacrifices, what does it mean by self-sacrificing itself for the organism's benefit? It means it will not act alone, basically, right? It will not act alone. It will not act under its own will, but as directed by as necessary for the organism to exist, isn't it? So why is this possible? And of course, it can, die and produce another one. So that is not cell mutation and neither is it recombination. So the best answer is cellular specialization B. Which of the following best supports the theory of chemical evolution? A. Life began on Earth as a divine act. B. Life originated through stepwise chemical process over billions of years. Supports the theory of chemical evolution. Okay. The best answer C. Life began when no. D. All life arose spontaneously. No. The answer is B. Is life originated through stepwise chemical processes over billions of years. The response of an organism to an external stimulus, such as light or touch, is part of which property of life? Response. Response is not adaptation. Response will be sensitivity. Irritability is also called sensitivity. Irritability. So it's the same as sensitivity. All right, which of these organisms is most likely to use phototaxis to move? Which of these organisms is most likely to move by phototaxism? Phototaxis. We have amoeba, earthworm, cyanobacteria. The answer is cyanobacteria because cyanobacteria has plant-like characteristics, right? So because of that, it is the one that is more likely to respond to light, isn't it? To move in response to light. The fit of an organism in an environment, as discussed in the unit, is primarily due to the fit, okay, natural selection or survival of the fittest. That will be adaptation by through natural selection. Number 8, the property of life that allows polar bears to survive extreme cold in an is an example of extreme cold. Energy processing homeostasis through thermoregulation. Yes, thermoregulation. Number 9, organisms grouped into population, communities, ecosystems, and biospheres represent which biological concepts? Diversity of species, classification systems, hierarchical organization. Yes, that's the answer. Hierarchical organization, levels of organization of life. That's what it means. A scientific theory must be A. Agreed upon by all religions, B. Based solely on tradition, no. Testable and supported by evidence. Yes, that's the answer. Not unquestionable and permanent, no. Because if it's testable, then it is questionable. And number 11, according to the model, which of these came first in evolutionary history? We've done that, microorganisms. Now, the properties of life are best described as optional traits for organisms, conditions created by environmental factor, universal characteristics shared by all living things, genetic. Yeah, the answer to that question, the best answer to that question is going to be C. Universal characteristics shared by all living things. So the mo- scientific method allows biologists to A, prove supernatural beliefs, no, eliminate non-living things from study, because no, systematically test and revise hypotheses, that's a good one. Apply mathematical laws, no, that's the answer. Systematically test and revise hypothesis. Which ancient scholar proposed that life could emerge from non-living material? So, and that was the theory that was that's theory of spontaneous um, regeneration, and that was the theory that was abolished. If you remember, we answered such a question just now. Which ancient scholar proposed that life could emerge from non-living material? Is that spontaneous? No, that is chemical non-living material. Yeah, that's chemical evolution because Aristotle. The answer is Aristotle. Aristotle. Non-living material. That's not chemical evolution then, because chemical evolution, why? Or you see, the answer is going to be Aristotle because the question says ancient scholar. Ancient scholar. Okay. So, and Aristotle came up um, in about, do I remember now? Probably scientists like Oparin and the rest, they came up in about 18th, 17th, and 18th century or thereabout. So that is much more. recent than Aristotle. Right. The next one, energy captured from sun and transformed into food of is an example of energy captured from the sun. So that is energy processing. Energy processing. That is solar energy being converted to chemical energy or stored as food. An organism's ability to grow and develop is determined by the weather, its diet, instruction coded in genes, and the number of offsprings it has. Answer is instructions, excuse me, coded in genes. The circulatory system helps maintain homeostasis by controlling reproduction or absorbing external light, transporting oxygen and nutrients. Yes, that's what the blood does. The presence of thick fur and fat layers of polar fat layers in polar bears reflects adaptation to warm climates, evolutionary adaptation to cold environment. Yes, evolutionary. Yes, that should be the answer. Homeostasis via internal cooling. No, internal cooling. No, no. Polar bears. The polar regions are already cold, so there's no need for internal cooling. Now, number 19, which statement is most consistent with the theory of the panspermia theory? So, which of these statements is the one that's most consistent with the panspermia theory? Life comes from meteorites. Answer, let's say yes. Yes, light comes from, that's the answer. And life spontaneously from no. So that's the panspermia theory talks about how that spores of that were stored up in meteors fell into the earth and they began to germinate into substances, living organisms rather. So number 20 says which pair of scientists are jointly credited with proposing the physical chemical origin of life theory? Which two pair? That will be Oparin and Haldane. Oparin and Haldane, because they were the ones that talked about mm, the theory, the chemical evolution theory. Okay. Now the last set, the term life science is often used interchangeably with, that is biology. Yes. Life science is often used interchangeably with life science, with biology, life science or biology. Which of the following is a key difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms? A, only unicellular? No. Multicellular organisms have specialized? No. It's not a key difference. No, it's a key difference though. Let's say again, which of the following is a key difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms? Only unicellular organisms? No. Multicellular organisms also have DNA. That's the thing. Multicellular organisms have specialized cells. Yes. Unicellular organisms, do they not have specialized cells? Their cells use, no, they don't have specialized cells. Okay, let's see option C. Unicellular organisms can't reproduce. That's wrong. Multicellular organisms, okay, the best answer is B. Option B. Option B. The next one says, so yeah, you said option B is the answer. The next one says, A scientist who saw this gene makeup and mutation is working and is working in which area of biology? Okay, 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 okay. That's genetics, of course, genetics, gene. Which statement correctly reflects the origin of life as supported by most scientists today? Life was created in six literal days. Life evolved, that is the theory of creationism. Life evolved through chemical processes over billions of years. The answer is B, chemical evolution. That's the most supported. The term homeostasis can best be described as the use of energy from the sun, a stable internal environment despite exactly B. Which theory implies multiple extinctions followed by new life creations? Multiple extinctions, then followed by new life creations. Okay, 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 yes. That's the catastrophism. That is, a catastrophe kept leading to the destruction of a particular species, and then a new one will come up and all of that, and on like that. So that's catastrophism. So, and so such that the new species that will be created will be different. The new species that will take over more like ecological succession. The new succeeding species will have a different evolutionary advancement over a different advancement over the organisms that were there before. Now, what is the primary molecule responsible for inheritance? That's DNA. Is the primary molecule. The concept of all living things respond, the concept that all living things respond to environmental signal is captured under which of the property? Environmental signal, that is sensitivity. Organisms that generate energy from sunlight are known as organisms that generate energy from sunlight are known as what? Autotrophs. Auto. Remember the word auto means self, trophos means feeding. So that is self-feeding. And the process is photosynthesis. There is also chemosynthesis, which is used by some bacteria, but autotrophs, um, uh, uh, photosynthesis is the provides about 98, 99%, 98% of the energy on Earth. So what I'll do is I'm going to stop here at number 10, and the remaining 10 you will answer them and provide the answers in the comment section below because it is just part of what we have discussed before. It is part of what we have discussed. Number 10 says, which evolutionary mechanism causes the gradual change of traits in a population over time? A gradual change in the population over time. So the best bet there is first, what's the gradual change? That will be evolution, right? So the answer will be natural selection. Don't be confused because you might think it's mutation. Mutation is not a gradual change, it's a misnomer. Misnomer. Um, so the answer is natural selection. Natural selection. All right. So now I'm going to scroll through this number 11. I'm going to scroll through the rest. So you can pause the video at intervals to answer them. This last set of questions. Okay. And provide the answers in the comment section so that I will know that you saw the video till the end and of course you attempted everything. Thank you very much for watching the video and stay subscribed to this channel. God bless you. Amen.